A week before the wedding, my fiancé spent a huge amount of money to buy the rights to a novel. Just because it was written by her ex-boyfriend and was essentially a tribute to their first love story. When the press asked me about it, I simply offered a faint smile and said, "It's rare for people to reunite with their first love. I wish them well." That evening, once the interview aired, my fiancé, who had been emotionally distant for months, unexpectedly reached out to me. She demanded I stop saying nonsense and even threatened to cancel the wedding unless I publicly clarified my remarks. What she didn't know, though, was that I no longer wanted to marry her either. When Chloe poured money into securing the rights to Alex's book and went out of her way to hire the top PR team to promote him, I read The Years like poetry myself. After finishing it, I could only describe it as underwhelming. It was just another cliché story about young love in a school setting, hardly special. It's certainly not the best written one of its kind. But because it was based on Alex's memories, with Chloe, she had no issue slapping me in the face publicly just to shine the spotlight on him. At the time, our wedding was just days away. I tried calling her, but her assistant answered instead. Apparently my calls were being rerouted. "Mr. He, President Liu, is in a meeting right now. Please try again in 2 hours," she said coldly. After all, President Liu has a packed schedule every day. Her tone dripped with sarcasm, almost as if mocking me for being an out-of-work actor with nothing better to do. Over the past couple of years, Chloe's assistant had clearly noticed the growing rift in our relationship and stopped treating me with the same courtesy. I gave a small smile and said, "All right." After I hung up, my manager Sandra looked at me with concern. "The press has blocked all the exits. You'll have to give a statement, Daniel. Did President Liu say anything?" I hadn't even spoken to her, so there wasn't anything to report. Still, I kept my composure and stood up. "Let's go. I'll say what needs to be said." Sandra was stunned and immediately caught on. "Wait, you're not really going to? But why wouldn't I use this chance to grab some free publicity, especially as someone the industry had already written off?" I had tried to ask Chloe how to handle the reporters, but since she had her assistant brush me off, there was no reason to protect either of them anymore. I stepped out the door and was immediately surrounded by a swarm of reporters. Microphones were shoved in my face, their eyes gleaming with curiosity and hunger for gossip. "Mr. He, President Liu, has recently been seen promoting The Rising. Author Alex and the two were spotted catching a flight to Greece this morning. What's your take? Your wedding with President Liu is scheduled for next week. Will her overseas trip with another man impact the ceremony?" So she wasn't in a meeting after all. She had flown off with Alex, Mr. He. Online rumors suggest that the popular novel, The Years Like Poetry, is based on the relationship between the author and President Liu. Is that true? The camera? Flashes exploded all around me, catching every nuance in my expression. I kept a calm, professional demeanor and spoke clearly. "Yes, everything you're guessing is true. And as for my thoughts, reconnecting with your first love is a rare thing. I wish them happiness." As expected, the interview dominated entertainment headlines. Chloe, Alex, and I instantly became trending topics. Social media blew up, with users dissecting every little detail between the three of us. Alex's fans lashed out at me, calling me a has-been, trying to ride his fame and smear him. But my own fans fought back, branding Alex a homewrecker and Chloe unfaithful. Spectators treated it like a spectacle. Some mocked me for being cheated. Others accused me of being a freeloader who got what he deserved. Still, the majority sided with me. Despite the ridicule, almost no one defended Alex's behavior in stealing someone else's fiancée. I'd been part of the industry just as long as Chloe, and compared to Alex, my public support was much stronger. His fans eventually had to quiet down. They simply couldn't keep up with the backlash. Some entertainment outlets even uncovered that Alex lived in the same residential complex as us. The revelation only made things worse for him. People started joking that the guy next door should replace the neighbor's lover in everyday sayings. That surprised me a little. Alex had been living nearby all along. It explained a lot. There were nights I'd wake up and find Chloe missing from our bed. When I called her, she'd say she couldn't sleep and was just walking in the garden. Turns out those walks were actually trips to Alex's place. Once I pieced that together, I paused to check in with myself emotionally. Aside from finding the situation a bit ridiculous, I didn't feel much of anything. Clearly, I'd stopped caring about what Chloe did a long time ago. Her assistant started calling me repeatedly, sending text after text. I didn't even open them, just blocked the number altogether. It was honestly laughable. Why didn't she do something earlier when I still gave her the chance? She ignored it. That night, from wherever she was abroad, Chloe must have finally realized the storm brewing back home. Eventually, she called me. It was the first time she had reached out in over 6 months. Funny, really less than a week before our wedding. Everyone in the industry knew we'd been together for a decade, yet in the end, she flew off to Santorini with her ex, leaving me to deal with the fallout. When I answered, I was curious how Chloe would explain everything. But instead, she jumped straight into accusations. Have you lost your mind? What kind of ridiculous things were you saying to the press? I've worked so hard to build up Alex's image, and now you've ruined it all, she snapped. Daniel, you need to release a statement immediately. Say Alex is just a family friend, and that I took him to Santorini to help plan the wedding. I let out a laugh. Seriously? I asked. Her tone was full of irritation. Who cares what's true or not? Just put the statement out and fix this mess. So it wasn't true. That story about him helping with the wedding was just a cover to justify bringing him along. I'm not doing it, I said flatly. Chloe clearly wasn't expecting me to say no. She went quiet for a good 30 seconds before bursting out in frustration. What do you mean, you won't? Caused this storm with your loose talk. Now you better fix it. Do you remember where we're supposed to have the wedding? I asked calmly. She fell silent. I went on, the invitations have been sent. The location is printed clearly. You hired a local team, and the venue is a hotel here right in the country. Don't you think the media will catch on? Aunt Irene. I remembered how, back when we were still in love, she'd said we absolutely had to get married there. She wanted our vows to be witnessed by the Aegean Sea in the most romantic setting imaginable. But when it came time to plan, she grew distant. She kept saying she was tied up with work, that her company had closed a massive deal and she couldn't spare time for a wedding abroad. A fancy hotel nearby would do. We'd been together so long there was no need to overdo it. But now she was in Santorini with someone else, living out the very dream we once shared. Embarrassed and angry, Chloe snapped, I don't care about any of that. Just clean this up. I don't want Alex dragged through the mud when we come back. If you don't fix this, then forget the wedding. And she hung up. Clearly she thought threatening to cancel everything would scare me into doing what she wanted. I tossed my phone aside and went back to packing. What a pity, Chloe. I didn't want to marry you either. Chloe and I had been together for a decade. Things were stable until last year, when things started shifting. I didn't realize Alex was her ex back then. Just thought it was odd how she, always buried in work, suddenly had time to binge-read web novels. She told me she was scouting for promising stories to option early, before they blew up, so she could adapt them for film or television. I didn't think much of it. Then about 6 months ago, she dropped millions to acquire the rights to one particular novel not even 300,000 words long. After that, she partnered with the hosting site and threw her full PR force behind promoting the author. Book signings, media appearances, top-tier publicity, it all felt excessive. So I decided to read the book myself. After finishing it, I honestly didn't get it. It was a slow-paced, forgettable, coming-of-age story. What about it was worth that kind of money? So I discreetly had someone look into the author. That's when I learned the truth, just before she accepted my confession all those years ago. Chloe had broken up with her first love. That first love was Alex, the author of the book. I even found out it was Chloe who had encouraged him to start writing, promising she'd promote whatever he wrote and make sure he became famous. So no matter how unimpressive the content was, if it was about their youthful romance, she would buy the rights and invest in it fully. But why? I was the one who'd been by her side for 10 years. I was her fiancé. And yet, for a relationship, that didn't even last 2. She was willing to spend a fortune and move heaven and earth to make him shine. So where did that leave me? What had the last 10 years of my life meant? I'd worked in this industry for years. I'd known success and failure. But I'd never once asked Chloe to pull strings for me. Yet the woman I loved had been burning herself out to prop up another man. It made me feel like a complete fool. For the first time in our entire relationship, I truly got angry with her. I expected remorse. Instead, she sneered and said, "Daniel, you're so ungrateful. You think I've never helped you. You may be too proud to ask for favors, but everyone in this business knows you're my boyfriend. That alone made people think twice before dropping you. You really believe the only reason you haven't been replaced in this cutthroat industry is luck? It's me, Daniel, me. United Culture holds half the resources in this business. You should be grateful you're my fiancé. That's the only reason you're still relevant. If I hadn't benefited from her, I'd already be a washed up actor trampled by the industry." That moment, watching Chloe's cold smile and hearing her arrogant tone, I suddenly understood. I never really knew her at all. After our argument, Chloe stopped caring about our wedding. She initiated a silent war and even cut off my access to industry resources. Back when my career was booming, I had signed under her company, United Culture. And if she wanted to suppress me, there was little I could do to stop it. Work dried up, and I was quietly frozen out of everything. Thankfully, during those 6 months of silence, my contract with United Culture expired. Maybe she didn't notice, or maybe she simply didn't bother to send a renewal. Either way, nothing came. Through those long months, I wrestled with doubt, beat myself up, and finally came to terms with the truth. Not every relationship flourishes, and not every person is meant to stay in your life forever. As my contract came to an end, so did my relationship with Chloe. As I was preparing to leave, Sandra, the person who first brought me into showbiz, came by to see me off. We had risen through the ranks together. She had become a well-respected manager in the field. She could have easily started her own agency, but out of loyalty to me, she stayed with the same company. When Chloe stripped me of my resources, Sandra was caught in the crossfire and suffered the same fate. In a sense, she'd sacrificed her own career for my sake. If I owed anyone, it was her. I transferred all my savings to her account, hoping it would somehow make up for what she lost. But Sandra just gave me a firm pat on the shoulder. "I chose this road myself. I'll take responsibility for it," she said. The company offered me to renewal. Contracts I turned both down. She smiled and added, "Maybe this is fate's way of testing me, Daniel. I've decided to start my own management agency. The money you gave me, treat it as an investment. I hope when you return, you'll be the star holding up my company." I smiled and promised her I would. Just as I was heading toward airport security, Sandra called out to me again. "By the way, one of the items you asked me to handle, the wedding ring." I knew what she meant. "Toss it. It doesn't matter," I said. That ring had been chosen by Chloe's wedding team. It held no personal meaning. I had already moved on from that decade-long relationship. Anything tied to it had lost its value. Sandra nodded. "Safe trip. I'll be waiting for your return." As my plane touched down in a new country, I broke my old SIM card in half-keeping. Only Sandra's number. From now on, this was a clean slate. I enrolled at a renowned drama school in the U.S. for further training. During those 5 years under Chloe's company, I had gone from a top actor to slowly fading from the public eye. Chloe had been focused on rapidly growing her company. It's constantly signing fresh talent and using me to push them into the spotlight. She didn't care much about the quality of the scripts. As long as the drama could be filmed and aired, she forced me into the lead role. That meant starring in a series of poorly written, badly received shows. Critics online even spread rumors that I was drowning in gambling debt, which is why I kept accepting terrible projects. When big productions with quality scripts reached out to work with me, Chloe would tell me to decline. "Don, you're already well known. One good role won't change your trajectory, but it could launch someone else's. The company belongs to us. They do well. It benefits you too," she'd say. And so, as my popularity gradually declined, she began acting like I owed her everything, that I only had a name in the industry because of her. During the time I was blacklisted, I saw myself regularly ranked on forums as one of the worst actors. I couldn't deny it anymore. After years of taking mediocre roles, I had lost the spark I once had for acting. Chloe hadn't just stalled my career, she made me forget why I ever joined the industry. I never wanted to be a placeholder in bland dramas. I wanted to leave my mark on Chinese cinema. Leaving Chloe meant walking away from a career I'd spent a decade building, starting from zero again. That's when I met Jana, a junior, in the directing program and an overseas Chinese student. She was gaining attention fast. Her father, Sam, was a globally acclaimed director whose films had won both domestic and international awards. Director Jiang had retired from filmmaking at age 45 and switched to photography. But even though over 10 years had passed since his last big film, Jana naturally attracted interest the moment she enrolled. We met purely by chance. After all, several of Sam's classics were used as essential material in our film theory courses. They were considered foundational to global cinema education. We started talking after a minor clash over a seat. As the older international student, I usually sat in the back of the classroom. Strangely, so did she. After finding her preferred seat taken by me multiple times, she ended up sitting next to me. Eventually, she started arriving earlier just to claim it first. Taken, I naturally started showing up earlier too. After a few rounds of this game, she finally got annoyed and muttered a curse in Chinese F***K. What's your problem? The seat doesn't belong to you. Hearing her speak in my native tongue, I perked up and replied, it's not mine. But I got here fair and square. She rolled her eyes and snapped, fine, whatever. But the next time, she made sure to arrive even earlier. That's how our small rivalry over that golden seat turned into something more. Once we grew more familiar, I asked her why, despite the class frequently covering her father's films, she always sat in the back. Her posture stiffened immediately. She stayed quiet for a long moment. It wasn't until after class, when Sam's name appeared on the screen, that she softly said, my father might always be a mountain I can't climb. I later learned the full story. Sam had left directing at the peak of his success, intending to pass the torch to his daughter. Jana had grown up immersed in his world and influenced by his ideas, but when she officially entered the field, she realized how hard it would be to surpass him. At just 23, her father's debut film had swept every major award. He was hailed as a prodigy. By 26, Jana still hadn't made a mark. The pressure became overwhelming, and she eventually fell into depression. Watching her wrestle with that burden, I found myself reflecting on my own path. I had graduated from a top drama academy, debuted in major productions, and by my third year, was working under a famous director. My first major role brought me awards and a flood of offers. I was quickly becoming a breakout star, known for my acting chops and earning both money and prestige. But after dissolving my own studio and signing with Chloe's company, I started burning out like a candle melting away. Because I had once stood so high, falling felt that much more brutal and unfair. What Chloe didn't know was that I'd been relying on antidepressants for a long time. During those 6 months when she cut me off and blacklisted me, I even self-harmed. I came dangerously close to ending my life, but somehow I clawed my way out of that darkness. I made the decision to leave it all behind and start over elsewhere. Maybe Jana found strength in my story. She decided to take a gap year from school. I didn't sit idle either. I started taking on all kinds of short-term jobs, working the register at McDonald's, waiting tables in bars, scrubbing dishes in restaurants, and even doing physical labor at construction sites. Up until then, I'd been in show business. Since college, I had no real connection to how ordinary people lived. Looking back, that year was the first time I truly saw how complex and difficult real life could be, the first time I truly understood what survival meant for most. And through it all, I began to see acting in a new light. When Jana returned to school, she came back full of energy and new ideas. She wanted to shoot a short film and asked me to star in it. Of course, I agreed immediately. To several short film festivals, and the response was great. She finally carved out her own space in the film world and broke free from the shadow that had haunted her for so long. That success not only lifted the weight off her shoulders, it reignited her creativity. She quickly started working on her first feature-length film. It was a surreal psychological drama, and she wrote the screenplay herself. So once again, she invited me to be the lead. In that story, I played a transgender person with schizophrenia role that was challenging in every way. We filmed in stages over 3 long years. Both of us were under a lot of pressure, but we never gave up. When the movie was finally released, it received high praise both within the industry and beyond. Jana had officially arrived. At 30, she achieved what her father had once done, a debut film that swept major awards. The media called her a late-blooming genius, and my name, too, began to resurface. Riding the wave of her success, I was back in the public eye. That year, I turned 35. Jana's film was later selected for a domestic film festival, and as the lead actor, I received an invitation. 2. It had been 5 years since I left the country. Now I finally chose to return. Unlike my departure, which had been quiet and unnoticed, our arrival was met with a crowd. Media outlets and fans swarmed the airport. There were so many people, we could barely get through. Everyone was shouting questions at once until one reporter called out, "Mr. He, you left the country 5 years ago and your wedding was called off. Now that you're back with a new film, are you planning to reconnect with Ms. Liu from United Culture?" Chloe's name caught me off guard. It had been 5 years. Other than Sandra, I had cut ties with everyone from that part of my life. Sandra had told me once, back when I first moved to the US, that Chloe had tried looking for me. But I told her that I didn't want to hear anything more about Chloe, so I had no idea what her situation was now. Almost instinctively, I said, "What? She hasn't married Alex yet." I had always thought that since she made such a public show of cherishing her first love, she must have been serious about him. But judging by the way the reporter asked, she was still single. Maybe my genuine surprise caught their attention because suddenly every reporter turned their mic toward me. "Mr. He, are you saying you haven't had any contact with Miss Liu at all? Is it true, as rumors claim, that your relationship with her has completely ended?" I couldn't help but laugh. I thought I made it clear 5 years ago, but if there's still any doubt, let me repeat myself. I have no connection with Chloe anymore. I sincerely wish her and her first love the best. Let's stop the personal questions here. I'd really prefer we focus on the film. Once we finally broke free from the reporters and got into the car Sandra had arranged, Jana pulled her mask down and smiled. "You once told me you were a big deal back home. I didn't believe you at the time, but clearly I underestimated you," I chuckled. "It's not exactly a good kind of fame. Being remembered for a messy love triangle isn't something I'm proud of. I was worried that this kind of gossip might negatively affect the promotion of the film in our home market." But as usual, Jana just shrugged it off. "What's the big deal?" she said. "If anything, this might generate some buzz. This is a niche film anyway. Sure, I made it for awards, but if more people buy tickets, I'd definitely welcome it." Then she leaned in closer and whispered, "Tell me honestly, do you really not feel anything for your ex-fiancé of 10 years? I had told Jana about Chloe before. She once asked me if Chloe hadn't wanted to break up, what would I have done? So looking back, that question feels strangely prophetic. Turns out Chloe never married Alex after all, Jana was really asking. If there was any chance I might get back together with her? I thought about it and told her, honestly, it's just exhausting. I had assumed that once I left, Chloe and Alex would live happily ever after. To my surprise, she stayed single all this time. I had a bad feeling that while I was back in the country, Chloe might cause trouble, and I was right. The next day, after signing with Sandra's new agency, I went to the office to see Hand ran into Chloe. 5 years had passed. Chloe had put on noticeable weight. She wasn't young anymore. Charm of youth had vanished, and time had caught up with her. She looked like she could be 40. I wouldn't have questioned it. We both froze. Chloe was the first to react, calling my name with excitement, but almost immediately something in her expression changed, and she quickly walked away. The whole encounter felt strange. When I got to Sandra's office, I could see she was clearly angry about something. I had a hunch it had to do with Chloe, so I asked. As soon as she found out I'd run into Chloe, Sandra exploded. "I've never seen anyone so shameless in my life," she snapped. From her reaction, I managed to piece together what had happened over the past 5 years. After I left, Chloe looked for me for 2 days. But when Sandra told her I had gone abroad, Chloe got furious. She told Sandra to give me a message. If I kept this up, she would replace me with Alex at the wedding in 2 days. She warned that I'd regret it. By then, I had already told Sandra not to tell me anything about Chloe, and she respected my decisions, so she never passed the message along. I asked, did she go through with it? Did she really try to replace me at the wedding? Sandra laughed coldly. Replace you? Do you think she could actually pull that off? The wedding never even happened? When reporters asked her, she claimed you were supposed to get married in Santorini and that her trip with Alex was just to scout the location. She barely managed to cover it up, but who actually bought that story? Chloe's company, United. Culture suffered backlash from the fallout. Her attempt to promote Alex was also undermined by my earlier comments, which gave the public something to laugh at. A small youth novel meant for a niche audience suddenly became gossip fodder. Outside of Alex's hardcore fans, most readers of the years like poetry shared my opinion. It was a bland, uninspired romance. People couldn't understand how it had been hyped up so much. In fact, it was later voted the most overrated youth novel on multiple platforms. As the saying goes, to wear the crown, you must bear its weight. Chloe had worked so hard to elevate Alex, but his talent couldn't meet expectations. The book was picked apart by critics. Readers started noticing that many of Alex's lines were suspiciously similar to those in an obscure web novel. So before he could even clear his name from a cheating scandal, plagiarism accusations surfaced. It's always tricky to prove plagiarism in online fiction, but the original author found strong evidence and filed a lawsuit. The case dragged on for years, unresolved. The main problem? The novel had no real literary merit to begin with. Alex's fame had been artificially created. The original author asked for compensation, but Alex refused. He believed that the work he'd copied wasn't worth much, and that without Chloe's backing, no one would have noticed it in the first place even if he had plagiarized it. This twisted logic led to years of conflict between Alex and the original author, with the case frequently trending across social media. Online users demanded that both Chloe and Alex issue a public apology for the plagiarism scandal. But in a baffling move, Chloe ignored the backlash and instead assembled a high-profile production team, boldly announcing plans to adapt the years like poetry into a feature film. The announcement ignited even more public outrage. The internet exploded with criticism and anger. Chloe likely intended to take the infamous route, pushing forward despite the negativity. She stubbornly completed filming within 6 months and rushed to release the movie as soon as possible. As many expected, the hastily produced film lacked any genuine sincerity. Despite casting the most attractive rising male leads and the prettiest young actresses from her company to bring this youthful story to life, the audience was merciless. They slammed the film, accusing her of serving them absolute trash. Are you serious? I'm forced to watch the spoiled children of the rich and witness her cringeworthy first love? Anyone who watches this plagiarized garbage must be brainless. These kinds of comments flooded every platform. Chloe had hoped that controversy would boost viewership, but reality proved the opposite. The film, Poetic Youth, which reportedly had a production budget of 200 million yuan, earned less than 10 million at the box office. She lost everything. In the past, a flop like this wouldn't have mattered much. But this time, Chloe had signed a performance-based contract with investors. Because Poetic Youth failed to meet its performance targets, the investors split up United Media's shares. As its CEO and majority shareholder, Chloe was completely ousted from the company. So what does any of that have to do with her coming to see you? Sandra asked, rolling her eyes. She only came because your film blew up. Chloe went around telling people you were still one of United's artists. She accepted endorsement. Deals on your behalf only to later realize your contract had expired long ago. When I found out, Sandra continued, I immediately made it public that you'd signed with Heechong Media. That's when Chloe came to start a fight. With me? Sandra rubbed her temples. But she had no proof you were still under contract with her, so although it got messy, The public sided with me. That's how I learned everything, Sandra warned me. Things haven't been going well for her. She's likely to come looking for you. Be ready. Sandra's prediction was right. As I left the office building, Chloe was waiting by the entrance. Security had tried multiple times to get her to leave, but she wouldn't go. The moment she saw me, her eyes lit up. Dan, I need to talk to you. I raised my hand to stop the guards. She stood up straight, adjusting her wrinkled clothes. It's been a while. Can we talk? We met at a quiet tea house. Chloe personally poured me tea and set the cup in front of me. Even though she'd asked to meet, we sat in silence for a long time. I glanced down at the tea. If you've got something to say, then say it. Chloe gave me a bitter look. I'm sorry, she finally said. That was all. This apology stood in stark contrast to the arrogance she had 5 years ago. Seeing I wasn't moved, her face flushed red, then slowly turned pale. Her voice weakened. I didn't get together with Alex. It was a misunderstanding. I never meant to break up with you. A mocking smile tugged at the corner of my lips. As I smiled, her voice grew even fainter. A tear fell down her cheek, and she quickly wiped it away. Is there really no chance for us anymore? I looked at her, her figure fuller, her once vibrant confidence gone. I said nothing. Chloe seemed to realize she no longer had the presence she once did. Her pride crumbled as she covered her face. I can't help it. Drinking constantly, staying up all night, the stress. It's impossible to keep the same body. She began to cry. Alex just used me to boost his fame with my connections and platform. When I gained weight, he started to resent me. But he never acknowledged that without me, he's just a useless brat. So after I left, you did get with Alex, but in the end, you two didn't last. At my words, Chloe froze. And now you're asking if we can still get back together? I stared at her. Are you really that clueless? I stood up. The only reason I sat down with you for this half hour was out of respect for the 10 years we spent together. But if this is all you wanted to say, then this was a complete waste of time. Chloe was stunned. Then what do you want to talk about? Obviously, I want to talk about the shares I still hold in United Media. Her face fell. Seeing her reaction, I couldn't help but laugh. Did you really think I came here to rekindle some old flame? This is the only topic left between us. Even though our artist contract ended, I still have shares in the company. Back when I was at the peak of my career, Chloe signed me with a promise that I'd receive 20% of United Media's shares, and we signed a supplementary agreement. Of course, once I signed, she acted like that agreement never existed. For years, I never received a single dividend. I stayed quiet at the time. I didn't want to fight over money. But now it's time to collect what I'm owed. Looking at her now, I could tell she planned to weasel out of paying. So I told Chloe to prepare to compensate me for all the unpaid dividends, otherwise I'd sue. I had already heard from Sandra that United Media hadn't been doing well in recent years. But I hadn't expected it to get this bad. Less than 30 minutes after I left the tea house, I got a call from Sandra. Chloe's mother had reached out to her saying she wanted to speak with me. She even dragged out her mother, someone who had always disliked me and thought I was living off her daughter. I was curious what this woman who had looked down on me for years would have to say now. So I called the number Sandra gave me, using a virtual number. To my surprise, the first thing Chloe's mother said was, I agree to you and Chloe getting married. No need to pay any bride price. And let's not talk about the shares once you're family. There's no reason for the two sides to talk business. I was speechless. When I didn't respond, her tone grew impatient. What? You still want the shares? Let me tell you. Something, Daniel, back in the day, men lined up to marry my daughter. But she wasted her youth waiting for you. You're lucky she's not asking you for compensation. You're successful now, but you don't want people accusing you of abandoning her, do you? Even after all these years, Chloe's mother hadn't changed at all. I immediately ended the call. Then I asked Sandra to help me file a lawsuit against Chloe. I sued her for the unpaid dividends outlined in our contract, over 50 million yuan. The lawsuit reignited all the past drama between me and Chloe. She was furious. She released a doctored audio recording from our conversation at the tea house, twisting the story and accusing me of abandoning her. She portrayed herself as a heartbroken woman who had waited 5 years for the man who never came back. But the internet doesn't forget. Before I even responded, sharp-eyed netizens dug up old stories of her and Alex staging publicity stunts, including a trip to Santorini. Even photos surfaced of them staying together in a luxury suite. Her plan backfired spectacularly. Then she published our contract with United Media, claiming I had violated it by signing with another company. She threatened to sue me for breach of contract for exactly the same amount I had sued her for, over 50 million yuan. Sandra responded with a stack of chat logs and recordings, clearly proving that my contract had already expired. She had even tried to negotiate a renewal with United's leadership, but was constantly brushed aside. Now, the media spotlight turned to United Media's management. It became clear that the real reason they hadn't renewed my contract was because they were waiting to see Chloe's reaction. Once Chloe lost her influence, no one inside the company had any interest in protecting her. An insider came forward to expose the truth. The contract delay was Chloe's doing. She had been humiliated after a massive fight between us about Alex. To get back at me, she purposely delayed my contract to teach me a lesson. That revelation destroyed what little sympathy she had left. The public saw through her manipulations. Even Alex, who had long parted ways with Chloe, was dragged into the mess. After leaving Chloe, Alex had ridden the wave of success she created for him. Thanks to the platform she built, he made a fortune as a top author, though he was frequently accused of plagiarism. He still collected large royalties. But the truth was, his writing was mediocre. After separating from Chloe, his work flopped. So once again, he resorted to plagiarism. This time, though, he targeted the wrong person, an established author with a loyal following. The author gathered solid evidence and sued him. The case was a complete loss for Alex. His reputation was destroyed. The platform canceled his contract and demanded he return his royalties. Now Alex was buried in debt and completely overwhelmed. Dragging Chloe down with him, he went on a social media tirade. He not only admitted to the pre-wedding affair with Chloe in Santorini, but also lashed out at her. Daniel gave up everything for her, but she's just a shameless woman. The moment she saw me again, her first love, she threw herself at me. I didn't even want to be involved, but she insisted she had power and could make me a star. Come on, we're all men here who'd say no to that when it's handed to you on a silver platter. I just made the mistake any man would. She's the real problem. Alex's meltdown only added fuel to the chaos. Meanwhile, I hadn't said a word publicly, but my legal team had been working quietly. Soon, the court ruled that Chloe must pay me over 50 million yuan in unpaid dividends and interest. After the ruling, Chloe tried to contact me several times. She wanted to reminisce and use past emotions to make peace. But I refused to meet her. Who would honestly believe that a former girlfriend who hadn't contacted me in 5 years still had sincere feelings? She only saw my comeback and wanted to pull me back under her control. I didn't know exactly what Chloe had been up to all these years, but in order to pay the 50 million yuan, she had to sell her home and some of her shares. Once the money hit my account, I immediately sold my shares in United Media to her major shareholder. By the time Chloe found out, it was already too late. She had completely lost control of the company she built. United Media was eventually renamed Fei Tang Media and absorbed into the parent conglomerate. Chloe, who had spent more than a decade building her business, ended up just another employee. Alex fared no better. His disgraceful public rant attracted bored internet users who dug into his personal life. They even harassed his new girlfriend. The woman who had just started planning a future with him broke up with him. 5 years ago, he ruined my marriage plans just before the wedding. 5 years later, he lost his own fiancée. After that, I stopped paying attention to either of them. Jana stayed in the country for a while, then decided to return to the US for further studies. The day I saw her off, she said, "Next time, will you be my leading man again?" I nodded. "Of course." Jana smiled playfully.
"I'm being the leading man in my life."
I froze, but by then she had already turned and walked through the gate without looking back. It felt like those words had been part of a dream. Of course, it wasn't until I was nearly 40 that I finally earned the approval of Jaina's parents, but that's a story for another time.